So these few small changes on Sabalenka's serve has really changed everything in her game. So on the left side, I have Sabalenka at the US Open 2 years ago, and on the right side, I have Sabalenka at this year's AO 2026. So straight away, you can see how at the beginning of both serves, she's loading the weight on the back leg. And now as she initiates the serve, she's going to get the racket going a little bit more down 2 years ago. So she's a little bit looser with the wrist here, and the tip of the racket is almost pointing down. Whereas if I show you the same position on the ball release at the Australian Open this year, we can see, so here's the ball release. You can see how now the arm is a little bit more sort of out to the side, whereas her arm here tended to go a little bit more back behind the body straight away. And the tip of the racket is a little bit more out to the side, out to the right side, instead of pointing down at the ground. So that's a small change that she's done in her game. That's really helped improve the consistency on her serve, and maybe you can take a few things away from this for your own game. So the next thing we're going to look at is on the ball release. So as the ball's being released from the hand, we can see that she releases the ball above the shoulder height. Like all the best servers in the world are releasing that ball sort of above the shoulder height. But even more so, I think at the Australian Open, it's slightly above the shoulder a little bit more than at the US Open 2 years ago. So she's got a slight higher ball release. So the next thing we're going to look at is the backswing up to the trophy position. We can see, so when the ball's being released into the air, have a look at the new racket position. So let's just wind it a little bit forward here. So you can see here how at the Australian Open 2026, the arm is more out to the side, whereas back then it was almost going behind her body. And now we can see how the Wilson logo is pointing the back vent on both, but where the tip of the racket is facing is slightly different. So here it's more on the right side, and here it's facing more on the ground. So she has that racket up, supported up a little bit more. And I always like to draw a line through this side through just on the outside of the body, just so you can really see the difference in where she's bringing that racket up. And a lot of the ATP players have it more how she's doing on the right side. So the tip of the racket more out to the side. So the next thing I want us to look at is going up to the trophy position. And you'll notice here again, this is the position I like to look at. So you can see here on the left side how this arm has almost locked out. And in my opinion, I feel like when you lock out your service arm too early, it causes tension in the elbow. And we can see how this arm is locked out as also, but it's a little bit more out to the right side. So she's getting a lot more sort of momentum. I feel like she'll be a little, the biomechanics on the right side is definitely a little bit more effective than on the left side, because I don't think locking out behind your body has that many benefits for your serve. So I'd much rather players I coach do what she's doing here on the right side, rather than taking that racket and locking out too far back like she's doing on the left side. But you can see here the racket position that she's in, it's a little bit more supported up. Whereas on the left side, the strings are almost facing down here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You'll see a lot of players actually do have the strings down, whereas here they're more sort of just facing the back wall, and that tip of the racket's out to the right here. But the biggest thing is how locked out she is with that arm there, whereas now she's still a little bit more out to the right in this position when she's got this left arm extending up to the ball here. So we can see the left arm is now extending up, which is really good. And now we're going to get into the trophy position. So guys, these are the kind of things I analyze for my video analysis coaching players. And if you're interested in me doing video analysis for your own game, then just tap the link in the description. So now let's have a look at her trophy position. So I'm going to wind it onto the trophy position. And we can see here how she's a little bit locked out again at the Australian Open 2026, but it's still a little bit more better than it was back 2 years ago, because you'll see as she gets to the trophy position, notice how at the US Open, how far back her hand actually goes sort of behind her body. Whereas now it's more, it's got a better alignment here. It just stays in line with the body. It's not going too far back this way. So that's a really big change that she's made. And I just think that really supports the biomechanics of the shoulder a little bit better. It looks like a much stronger position that she's in. And she's got more of a 90-degree angle there with the elbow, which is great. And also we can see how the strings in this position are facing down a little bit earlier back then, whereas now the strings are still kind of pointing a little bit more out to the side in the trophy position. So then after she gets to this position, you'll see that she goes into the leg drive. So she drives into the legs here. We can see really good. I mean, she's really physical, so she uses her legs really well on her serve. So as she goes down, you'll see that she gets into this position. And she's really able to vertically drive up to the ball after she gets into the trophy position. So you'll see here on the left, as she goes down, she's really going to get her legs driving up into the contact. And that racket, because she's holding the racket quite loose in this position, as she drives up, the racket naturally lags and drops down behind her back into this position. This isn't a position that you can kind of force. A lot of players they ask like, how do I get this drop behind my back? And this is all about being loose and driving up into the ball. So that's really important. A really important thing to focus on. But you'll see that I think there's a little bit more spacing now also between when she's dropping that racket behind her back. I feel like her shoulder is just externally rotating a little bit better into contact. Whereas you'll see here that she's almost dropping, and really it looks a little bit more forced on the left side, whereas I feel like she's naturally driving up into the contact here and looks a lot stronger on contact. And she pronates, so after she makes contact, you'll see how the hand will pronate out to the right side. So the strings, the swing path and the strings actually go out here. So you'll notice the strings are actually facing out to the right side, and that tells us how much she's pronating on contact with the ball. Whereas you'll see back then, the strings, she did pronate, but you'll see that the strings were almost facing down quite early. Whereas now there's even more pronation happening in 2026. So in my opinion, there's a few things that I would change in her serve, and this is something that you could almost think about as well if you're having a few similar problems on your serve. I think she's only at 70% of her capability on this serve. I feel like she's got so much more room for improvement that could really transform her game even more and just be holding serve a lot easier. And if I was to change something in the serve, that would be when she's in this position, just not locking out straight with the elbow there. I think there should always be a slight bend in the elbow like this, and that just really helps your elbow stay relaxed. You should never lock out, because that's just creating muscle tension, and it almost prevents that whip-like effect that you'll see a lot of the ATP players get. They all have a slight bend in this elbow just before they get to the trophy position. So that would be one thing I would change for her. And the next thing I would change for her is also the ball toss. And I'm not criticizing her because she's an unbelievable player, but these are just, in my opinion, just a couple of things that I would be thinking about changing to maybe even maximize his serve a little bit more. And that's, look how high she throws this ball. So the ball gets that high. So I'm just going to draw a line through it. And then I'll draw a line when she actually makes contact with the ball. So there you go, there's the ball. And now let's wind it on. So look how much the ball is falling. And she actually only makes contact there. She's making contact on this line here. So you've got this whole gap. This drop is that far. And I think this is what causes her to have off days on her serve. If it's windy, if the conditions aren't quite right, then timing a moving ball that has to fall so much before you make contact, if you're not feeling it on the day, that's just one extra thing that can go wrong. Whereas you'll see a lot of the best male servers, they only throw that ball maybe just a little bit lower, so they probably throw it here, and the drop is much less. So I would say most ATP players do it like that. So there'd be a slight drop to contact. And the reason being is you don't want to be holding, you don't want to be waiting in your trophy position like this, loading and having a really long pause in that position, because that can just throw your timing off. And also it's almost like sitting at the bottom of a squat and pausing there for a long time and not exploding up, whereas you're much more powerful when you go down and up quickly. So that would be the second thing I would change on her serve. So what I'm going to do now is just show you Hurkacz's serve, just to show you kind of what he does. All right, guys, so here I've got Hurkacz's serve on the left, and I just want to, because he's got a pinpoint serve similar to Sabalenka, and I actually think their serves are actually a little bit similar. So notice how his arm goes out to the right side. I'll draw that line through here. You can see how far out to the right it goes. And notice how high he's got that ball release above the height of the shoulder. And the next thing I'll show you is as he gets to that position, so similar to where Sabalenka is, so the ball's been released from the hand here, you'll notice how he'll bend his elbow there. And there's a slight bend in the elbow. So you've got this position here, and you've got a slight 90 degree, not quite 90 degree, but you've got a bend in the elbow. Whereas the difference on her serve is she's locking out straight there. And I think if she just added this in, she would probably potentially hit another 5 mile an hour and just be hitting absolute bombs. But that's just my opinion. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching the video. And also, if you want coaching from me online through my video analysis subscription, then just tap the link in my bio and get in touch, and we can get working together straight away. So stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Jack.